No, absolutely. I just came hours ago, practically, from a Congress for students in southern Mexico. And you know, we came through a new airport. There was zero information about, we saving water. Maybe they don't. Probably they use solar panels because it makes sense from a business viewpoint. They are in the middle of nowhere. But no information about sustainability, right? Of course, 5 panels about duty-free shop going by. But it's so easy to insert another element. Is no, this is the first airport built, in this part of the country or the world
Yeah.
that has this property or preserves the environment, or we're reducing pollution by having the planes landing directly. Whatever difference they can make, exactly what you said, to create this curiosity in the humans and learning process at the end. It's, oh, okay, yeah, I've been so a very simple experience. It's not a luxury, it's a basic airport, but a simple experience. I've been through the first airport in the world that has this sustainability plan or program or recycling water,
Yes.
whatever. It's so which they are doing, by the way. It's not like they do it in the name of sustainability. They do it in the name of, as you said, of economics, of bottom line results.
Yeah,
So
and
there
I
is a lot
think
of
that
space.
the other opportunity that hospitality and tourism overlooks in some scenarios is getting kids involved. We were talking about schools, but it's one thing to get adults involved, but when you start to ignite that in a child, oh gosh, they just,
Sure.
not only can it change the trajectory of their life, but now maybe they're better behaved on a vacation, or they have a place to go, or they're more interested in something. And a lot of the places that I get to work with or I get to visit, I see that, and I see these kids, time has just gone away and they are engaged and engorged in some kind of activity that's involved in nature and community storytelling, and then the parents can go off and do their thing, and it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, uh, we already touched on this difference between the generations in terms of sustainability. I know actually that the younger generation is much more directly involved in sustainability, is supposed to be more of a rational process. Yes, the planet is and the environment, and at the end, the rational process tells you also makes sense. If you use renewable, eventually it gets cheaper. For instance, we had another guest that talked about renewable energy and how quickly it can pay back, for instance.
Yes,
And the fact that actually in renewable energy, the economic model changes. In the way it changes is you invest, right? It's capex, capital expenditure at the beginning, and at the end, it's once it pays back the capital, everything else is pretty much 100% profit. And the
mm-hmm.
model of energy, for instance, there is a major investment in the power station, and then there is everything, it's OPEX. You pay every month your electricity bill, and you never stop paying the electricity bill. So if you look at the economic impact from a different lens, sustainability just makes purely economic sense. No,
Absolutely.
not even mention sustainable or renewable. So absolutely, and that's again when we talked about green locks and bottom line results. I think, as I mentioned, you are one of the first that brought this forward. And we talked about standards before we starting recording. Are these standards in fashion, off fashion, in between fashions? What are always lead standards and so on? They were lead well, and a bunch of others that I don't even remember what the acronym is.
I think accreditations and standards are very important to keep a global language. We want, we're confused. I'm confused sometimes, but you can imagine what the traveler is. And I think that these are proven frameworks. However, I do think there is a lack of, sustainability, regeneration is not a one size fits all. And I think the one issue is that we're lacking really looking at what location, environment, geography are you in, and what are the local community biodiversity needs there. So I think starting with a framework, or a certification that is a global standard is where you start. But then I think there has to be a layer of that local, element as well, because you just can't operate sustainably if you are not paying attention to your local surroundings.
And that's exactly, and this is if you want the tension between global standards and local cases. Actually, if you look at sustainability in general, there is a whole debate at the COPs and so on between countries that are economically well off, and there are the main beneficiary actually of burning fossil fuels and so on. There are industrial countries and services countries. And then the developing countries which are saying, well, we cannot produce cheap renewable energy. We need energy. We need to, and probably one of the more balanced factors is China, that it's trying to develop a clean tech energy, clean tech industry, and they are in the process of developing and overtaking the other countries because they realize the value of clean tech while
Yeah.
they're still burning fossil fuels in their plants, but they have a longer term view on sustainability, right? They don't look at ROI in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. However, they are looking at developing an industry, realizing there is demand for clean tech. And clean tech, it's of course energy. It's also the way we use energy more reliably and also more efficiently. So,
Yeah,
and
China's kind of an oxymoron, but at the same time, if you look to them, uh, they've always got their finger on the pulse of what the future is. And so I think for any naysayer of whatever climate change or anything, I think that's always kind of a good guiding light. Is if you look at China, they're always ahead of everyone, usually in most commerce.
I think once China moved, to a more liberal regime, I won't call
Yes.
the regime currently liberal in China, but the people can get hold of passports. They started to travel. Very, very interestingly, was a total change and they travel for experiences. I worked many years with China, with Chinese for a Chinese company, and they really like experiences. You know, I was
Yeah, if
smiling
you see
because
a bus pull up, right, and 200, Chinese tourists come out, and you're like, okay, I must be in a good spot.
exactly. But going back to sustainability, and by the way, probably I don't have statistics, but they're probably now a major component of luxury travel as well, in the
Yes.
environmental travel. And
Yes.
in some way, they culturally appreciate the environment probably more than the Europeans, which benefit of a luxury environment, right? And
Yes.
then they have in a few thousand kilometers, they have pretty much everything from oceans to mountains to snow to sand and so on.
Yes.
So, so there is from a travel perspective, it's probably an area where we need more stories in Chinese for for
Yes, that's a good point.
for the and I think to sort of summarize where we are so far, we've seen a gap in sort of a holistic sustainability kind of travel, like let's travel just to be sustainable. Well, it's almost
Hmm.
an oxymoron. If you want to be more sustainable, you probably take the bicycle, not the airplane.
Yes.
So travel, 10 kilometers, not 10,000 miles. Uh, uh, do you see a change in the direction of how the holistic sustainability is? I hesitate to use the term packaging, but is the best I can come up with. So there were these experiences, we go to a resort and we're going to learn about everything, how the resort is sustainable. Well, maybe not. Maybe not it's only the just this experience of being just sustainable, right? You are on vacation, you want a combined experience, not only holistic sustainability. I don't stay in a hotel 5 days to learn everything about how the hotel sells, saves energy. It's interesting, but I'd like to make it a 2 hour trip or tour.
Yeah, I think that no ecosystem thrives if people don't thrive, right? And so it's amazing to me every time I have a conversation with somebody and they want to know what I do, and the first thing they would say is, "Oh, so you help people recycle." And I think that's a great example of the messaging that we've gotten wrong about sustainability. That's not their
Definitely.
fault that they think that sustainability is recycling. That is our fault as an industry, that we haven't explained sustainability the right way. And so, whether it's people ecosystem, financial ecosystem, and viability, and of course, environment, it all has to come together through fair wages, local sourcing, of course, storytelling that honors the community, gives humans that curiosity and they learn something about there. But I think from a hospitality and tourism lens, guest service and, you know, the way a guest feels is the real currency.
Sure.
And guests can feel whether there's integrity, they can feel whether it's genuine, and they can tell if employees are happy. And I truly believe that that is one of the main measures of true sustainability in an organization, whether it's culture or it's an add on. And so that's why I think that hospitality professionals really need to be looking at this, because you can be relevant one day and that can be gone the next. So that to me is a true indicator.
No, absolutely. And as you said, we travel for experiences. We travel for bragging rights. We travel even if we travel in business we didn't talk about sustainability in business context, but a lot of people travel on business. They'll pause for a few minutes to understand why they choose or they can choose a sustainable hotel, or the people making the decisions on selected hotels and so on. Very few people in business, well, some people in business travel for luxury travel. I don't know the percentage, but a lot of them travel because it's a requirement of the business. So they stay in pretty much standard environments or standard hotels, right? And still there are very little things you mentioned. If the staff of the hotel is happy, right? It's you can inject a very short story, right? Your hotel room had been renovated for sustainability 3 months ago. Thank you for visiting us. No, you know, know what, yeah, the we we have automatic lights off and so on, stuff like that. Very simple things that they do, but they cannot create a story of sustainability in the back of it. It was a purely remodeling of the room, right? But to use furniture that it's produced sustainable. We use less energy in the room. The air conditioning gives you comfort, but also knows you are in the room. Knows
Yeah,
you are in the room.
that's guest experience, right? And
Exactly.
as
Eh,
you're saying, it takes very little for a employee to engage a guest. Doesn't mean they have to stand there and give them a long lecture, but it
exactly.
also, right, they're not there for an hour lecture on the renovation of their hotel.
Pick up your garbage and be a positive mess.
But to the other point of that, Manuel, is I think that a hotel is viewed a completely different way when your employees can speak to something that isn't their typical job description.
Absolutely.
And that makes an impression. And especially someone in business, I truly believe that regardless of how busy we are and how meetings, those kinds of things stand out in our world today.
Sure, it's I cannot compare with your traveling experiences, but I travel a few times around the world, literally. Uh, you pick up these experiences. It takes you only 15 seconds, and as you said, it's this interaction, and it's like I'm happy that I work for a sustainable hotel. This is
Mhm.
what they did in the last month.
Yes, yes.
People will stop or pause for a second and say, "Oh, yes." Some will say, "Tell me more." Some will say, "Thank you for letting me know."
Versus going to, I was just at a very, I'm not going to name any names, but a very nice hotel on the beach, at their restaurant outside. And I was inquiring about sustainable seafood. And the waitress was very proud to let me know that the seafood was fresh.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and it's those kind of little moments that you can either really lose credibility, or even if she would have said, you know what, that's something we're working on but we're just not quite there yet,
Yeah, I'll tell the chef.
that would have been, yeah, that would have been, I would have
I'll, I'll,
respected that so
I'll
much
tell
more
the chef
than her thinking,
a customer ask for sustainability. Next time they ask, let me know what I can tell.
yeah.
Very, very simple. Not even answering the question, but basically respecting your question.
Well, and just understanding what that sustainability doesn't mean fresh necessarily, right? So they didn't even understand the question. And you think, if this is a hotel in a very fragile ecosystem and they haven't even been taught what that word means,
Exactly.
and this is a brand that claims that they have taken on all kinds of sustainability and this and that, and then you lose all hope that anything is happening in the world, but that's just
Well,
my instance.
yeah,
But
it's one example. I'm sure that, but what you're pointing to also can be very easily corrected, can be very easily, definitely wasn't the waiter or
no,
was
not at all.
was the hotel that you, and again we mentioned greenwashing. I mentioned greenwashing is a thing of the past. In part, it's a thing of the past because it led to this kind of regulations and over-reporting and so on. How many carbon, tons of carbons or kilos of carbons are you producing? And again, wasn't taken in the context of social economics and really
Yes.
become embedded in the operations of the company. Sustainability, we found very clearly in AKFI has to be part of operations, financial operations, business operations, strategy. They all have to have a sustainability component rather than say,
Yeah.
"Oh, we are the most sustainable hotel, luxury hotel," because people want to know we are sustainable and they have the bragging rights. No, they don't say, when you have 1,000 guests in the hotel, they don't have bragging rights. We all I was there 3 months ago. You were there 2 months ago. Okay, we had the same experience. Case closed.
Yes. And you know, you bring up something I just want to touch on really quick, which is I used to think that sustainability, as far as hospitality and marketing, should not sit in the same uh, position because I thought, well, that dilutes sustainability. And actually, I've changed my mind on that because I believe that if your marketing person actually heads up sustainability, they know how to communicate it better. And they know how to bring value to it. Whereas if it does sit in the engineering department, and please, I'm not saying anything. Thank God for our engineers because I'm not an engineer and we need them in the world. But if it sits in another department,
Thank you. I'm an engineer.
I love engineers because I'm that's not my brain at all. But you know, there has to be a translation, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Without getting too much in my engineers are probably the worst communicators. We really like to communicate with screens, not people.
My husband's one. Don't say anything.
Okay, well, I have the right, you know. I went to the school, but that's that's true. But no, marketing. I was the wrong kind of engineer because I went to the dark side of marketing, product management, marketing. I
Oh
was
no.
chief marketing officer for Huawei for a region for over 10 years.
Oh wow.
People don't realize that marketing it's part of marketing is marketing communications. And I can tell you
Yes.
greenwashing happened because executives came to marketing and say, tell them what we do is sustainability. And poor marketing people started to say, okay, what can we tell? Well, we collect the garbage 3 times a week instead of the 4 times a week, and we produce less garbage. Okay, interesting data point, but and then the marketing being marketing is like, okay, how do you send a positive message? Because marketing, I don't know anybody in marketing that really wants to talk about the negative part. It's not part of the
No.
job description.
Of course. Of
And
course.
and then they say, okay, we're doing this, and then the next hotel or company said we're doing better. It's like, oh no, we are doing better this time, right? And I think this could be one history of greenwashing.
Yes, I
We
agree.
came to greenwashing is like a competition between marketing departments saying we are better one than the other, which is natural. But if you don't have a substantial, a fundamental sustainability in the core of the company, in the
Yeah.
processes, don't ask marketing to report
No, no.
because you really force marketing to make up stories.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
So I think, I have no proof that says how greenwashing happened, but sounded like a competition for a while between marketing
Yeah, you're onto
departments.
something, I think.
Yeah, look at the quality of the glossy presentations, right?
Yeah.
So let's look for a short look at the future, and then I would like definitely to go to the next question on career advice. But how do you see the future of sustainability from all your experiences in the travel and hotels industry, in luxury hotels? Is it going to stay a luxury?
No, I mean, let me take that back. Yes, I think that there will always be privilege when it comes to seeking out some of the most sought after destinations or most remote destinations if you have to go away. Unfortunately, that's just the way the economic world works, right? But when I think about sustainability and hospitality and tourism, I believe they will become one and the same. You will not have one with the other. And that is, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, we have way too much to lose. You know, hospitality and tourism is one of the few industries in the world that is very uniquely positioned to lose everything and to gain everything if we are not taking care of the places that we travel to and we live in. So, and I think that whether people are talking about it on a regular basis, the word risk keeps coming up more and more and more recently. And when you look at the coastal regions of the world, insurance, they're uninsurable locations. There are so many massive economic collapses happening in different industries that affect hospitality and tourism that I think there is going to be just kind of like this massive coming together where in 10 years, this conversation will not be happening. It will be how will we deepen sustainability? And now hopefully we're talking about regeneration. So that's where I see it. I hope I'm not naive, but I just know that we cannot be left to just extract and take and pollute and expect people to still want to visit our destinations. It just doesn't work like that. Checks and balances.
Absolutely no. We already starting to observe that sustainability is hiding in the insurance premiums or lack of insurance, and everybody feels sustainability. It's like, and actually, from an analytical viewpoint, the risk industry, the insurance industry, and loans and finance in general uh, don't know how to measure sustainability or how sustainable a place is. And that, you know, change. Either they go for absurd rates or they don't insure even. I think, for instance, Louisiana has now a case where in many places they cannot get home insurance for mortgages. You can get a mortgage. And we're not talking only, it's a case study if you want. And by the way, luxury hotels or basic accommodations hotels are neighbors in, as you said, on the ocean, for instance. And the nature doesn't, you know, goes by the actuary tables of the insurance company and says, oh,
Yes.
this is more expensive than another. A
Yes.
tsunami, it's a tsunami everywhere.
Yeah, they don't favor one financial group or one hospitality group over the other. If you are uninsurable in their mind, you're uninsurable, and
Exactly.
that is a massive crisis.
Yeah, it is, and leads to this. I tend to tell people sustainability is hiding now in the insurance premium. You can find it there. How
Yes.
sustainable it's a non-scientific, really based, but it is probably the best financial model we have. And
That's really interesting. That makes a lot of sense. And we used to talk, or I used to hear about green premiums, brown discounts, and that was in terms of right your financial viability from a loan standpoint. But now it's bleeding into insurability. So if you're
absolutely.
insured, if you can be insured, you're green. If not, you're brown.
Well, most of a lot of insurance goes into sustainability because we typically insure against capex, capital expenditures, building
Yes.
plants, building locations, building. When you go to the bank to get a loan, of course, as you said, the bank asks, okay, so what's my risk of you paying back? Oh, we are the biggest cruise company, no risk at all. It's like, okay, are you insured? Oh no, we are self-insured. This sorry, your bonds are 3 points more than the other bonds because you asking me to take more risk, the risk of insurability. And by the way, I read the newspaper about the last sustainability event was a storm or something. So, well, I would like to invite you back, but not only I would like to invite you back. But before that, we have a closing question. So, we have a lot of students. We have people in the middle of the careers that are looking at sustainability. Some of them are definitely looking at the travel industry and the hotel industry and sustainability. What would you recommend from what we learned so far today? What would you recommend to new graduates or seasoned professionals or both, actually?
Well, it's a tough
You just,
industry.
yeah, you just have on your hands the career of thousands and thousands of people. So
I
no,
think
not
it's
to
a
make
tough
it.
industry, but I think that if you have the mindset, if you can be patient, and if you can, I think if you already have a career in hospitality, start asking questions. If you're not already engaged in sustainability where you work, start asking questions, start offering solutions and see if they respond to it. You might find yourself in a year, nothing happens overnight, whatever it is. So be patient to see, and you might find yourself heading up a new sustainability department. But I think in that same conversation, if it's something that's very important to you and you give it ample time and there isn't any kind of reciprocity, I think it may be time to look for a different organization. But I think if you're a new graduate too, gosh, I think you just have to try to learn as much as you can. And again, offer value anywhere you see opportunity. Because I think the people working on the ground in these hotels are the ones that really have their finger on the pulse of what the guest wants. They know where those bottlenecks are for their organization, and they can really, really bring valuable insight. But I think you have to be organized about it too. I don't think you can just go in and shout things. I think spend some extra time, put together a nice little report of the things that you see that could make a difference for the organization from an operations standpoint and a guest experience standpoint. And I can't imagine that upper management wouldn't take notice to that.
Absolutely. So a grassroots kind of approach. And as you said, naturally, and this is another process, right? Companies that are really in sustainability, they do it for the purpose of business, of their customers, of the industry, of the planet, right? Not necessarily starting with planet first, but starting with business first. They like people that find new business opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can relate it to sustainability, it's a career path.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the head, Manuel, is there you have to have a business mindset to it because it's just the world we live in. And that's okay. But I think once you can prove that, then you give yourself a lot of credibility.
Absolutely. No, with this, really would like to have you back soon. Definitely not 2 years and a half or so since we passed. And I would like to thank you for taking the time today, visiting again with us, and for our audience to make sure to tune in every week for a new episode of Actionable ESG Talk series. You'll gain new perspectives and new views about sustainability and how to create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation and AI. Until next week, thank you. And again, thank you to Amy for visiting with us today.
Thank you, Manuel.